Hey guys, welcome back to Just Fixing Garage. It's a cold December morning. I'm out here working on a Ford Escape. There is a problem where the actual ignition lock cylinder is causing the car not to start. This is generally an issue where it wears out inside, so the ignition switch isn't getting pressed to make the car start. I'll show you that in a minute, but this is pretty common on some Ford, Mercury, Lincoln cars for like a 10-year gap. It's fairly easy to fix if you're comfortable working on a car, pulling a steering wheel and such, and dealing with airbags. So I'm gonna get in there and work on this. They've been dealing with it for a long time, and it's just gotten progressively worse where now the key doesn't even want to start it like ever. Generally, when it starts going bad, you have to push harder, hold it longer, or put more pressure on it. So let's dive into it. I'll put the details of the part I use, the tools and everything next, and hopefully it'll help you guys out. So I'm gonna dive into it. Alright guys, so I'm going to try to intro this video now with some of the tools I used. So I'm going to start with the battery. So one of the first things they say you need to do is disconnect your battery and use that tool. You're going to need an 8mm. That will unhook your negative terminal. So just make sure you have an 8mm socket to take care of that. The next part you need to do is going to be removing your steering wheel or your airbag from the steering wheel. And you're going to need some type of Allen key that usually works pretty well to go into there. I don't know what size this one is, maybe it'll say it on here, but really, if it fits through the hole on the steering wheel, you can use it, and you have to go about that far in there to pop it loose. Then once you get that off of there, you're gonna need a 5.5mm, which is not super common, so if you don't have one, pick one up, but 5.5mm to get the plastic cover off of around the steering wheel. All right, so once you've got that off and the airbag's out, you're going to need, a variety of pliers, but I'll get to that. You'll need a T50, I believe it was, for the steering wheel. So make sure you have that handy to get the steering wheel off. There's a T50, I believe. It may have been a T45, I'll correct myself, but I'm pretty sure it was a T50. Okay, so you'll need that to get the steering wheel off. And then on top of getting the steering wheel off, you'll want a steering wheel puller. Sometimes they just come off, other times they don't. I do show you how to use that. On top of the steering wheel puller, you'll need whatever size socket fits your steering wheel puller stuff. Mine was a 1/2 inch for the bolts and I think a 19mm for the actual big separator. Use whatever you need. Before pulling the steering wheel, I used a paint marker to mark the side up. And then on top of that, I needed a variety of picks, a flathead screwdriver, and pliers to get wire harnesses apart. And then the other big thing you're going to need is either a grinder or a Dremel or some type of hacksaw, because you're going to need to cut your bolt, cut a notch into the bolt. I tried a little hacksaw at first and then I gave up. I'm not even sure I'll have that in the video. Then I used a grinder. I was trying to find a cutoff wheel for my Dremel, but I must have used them all, or I would have just used my Dremel, but I used the grinder. I did cover everything up. But that is all I can think of that I really needed. I'm just looking around what tools I had out. As long as you've got a different set of pliers, you've got some picks, flathead. I mean, the only thing really is your torque set, which I suggest you just pick up a torque set. I shared this set earlier, the Lexavon, cheap one on Amazon. It works great for like 20 bucks. And then the 5.5mm. So make sure you have all this ready, as well as the part. I used the Dorman. I'll have to mention it. Oh, sorry, here we go. It's Dorman 989-019. It was a cheaper part than most, so I was pretty happy with it. It fit great, came with the shear bolt and everything. So here's the old one, the OEM one, which, yeah, it's definitely OEM, has Ford Motor Co. on it. And it lasted a while, but eventually all things come to an end. But either way, guys, hopefully this helps. I'm going to dive into the video now and show you how it's done. But just make sure you have these types of tools so you're not running out. Most of it's simple, but have something to cut and then have something for the torques. You'll be good to go. So let's go. All right, guys, so I just want to show you the problem that you'll run into. And this has been getting worse over time, but you'll put the key in there and go to start it. You'll get all the bells and whistles. When you go to turn, it doesn't do anything. I think my battery's a little low right now. I'll have to charge it up. Sometimes it will work if you take your key and you push in really hard and then turn it. But I'm not even getting that now. But, we're going to end up having to replace this entire cylinder right here to get this fixed. It's going to require taking off the steering wheel, the airbag, all these plastic covers. You'll need a couple different tools to do this. Nothing very crazy. And the part we picked up for like, I don't know, it was like 60 bucks when it was on sale on Amazon. It's a Dorman part. I'll trust that over a no-name brand. Not that Dorman is fantastic, but either way, I'm going to get into it and show you the next steps. Since we will be removing the airbag, it's going to be taking the battery terminals off. So first thing, just make sure you get your steering wheel straight. It's going to make it easier to line everything up when you put it back on. You don't want this thing turned 180 degrees or something. So get your steering wheel straight. We're going to go and hook the battery, and then we will remove the airbag part and start taking things off. So let's keep getting into it. Alrighty, on this car, looks like it's probably going to be just this 8mm right there that we can loosen up. And once that block is loosened up, it should be able to come off of there for the negative. Then we'll just set the negative to the side. The positive can stay on, it's not really relevant. So I'm going to take off this negative cable, put it to the side. I'm going to hook up a battery charger thing here since it's been sitting for a little bit just to charge it up. This battery is 3 years old, so probably wouldn't hurt to keep it fully charged. But take the negative off, set it to the side, and then you need to wait 15 minutes at least before you touch anything with the airbags, just in case. I've never had one go off, never had an issue, but I don't want that to start now. So take off your negative, use the 8mm, and I'll show you that in a second. Good, see? Nothing on there now, so we'll keep that clear. I'm gonna hook up a battery charger to this just so we have a full charge when we're ready, but you know, got that out of the way. So let's move back inside the car. All right, guys. So I have waited the 15 minutes or so to make sure the airbag is off, make sure the horn doesn't work. That's good. I'm gonna start by getting this piece out of my way because I think we'll need to have it. This is all just plastic clips, so that will pop out. You can see it's kind of hinged, but if you give enough pressure, this will pop out. I'm gonna set that to the side. Don't mind the mess, this is more of a work vehicle. We're gonna have to take out two nuts that are in here. I believe it's like a 5.5mm. So I'm gonna grab that and get those ready. And then if you look at the bottom of the steering wheel, right here, you're gonna see a little hole. I'm not sure what the camera sees, but we'll actually be putting like either like a pick or like an Allen key in there. And it's like a spring clip that will push in and then it will let the airbag come out. I'm gonna start with these two right here, confirm the size. Is it 2? Yeah, it's 2. So 1 and 2. Confirm the size and get that loosened up so then this entire plastic shroud can come off. So hopefully you can see, yeah, the 1, the 2, and then I mentioned that little hole here in the steering wheel. So let me get those figured out and double checked, get this plastic off, then we'll work on our airbag piece coming off here, and then, you know, much more comes off from there. So give me a second, let me grab the stuff and I'll show you taking it off. All right, guys, I'm gonna try to set the camera up on the tripod the best I can. So I did get a 5.5mm. I know it's a weird size, right? That's gonna fit on this. So I'm gonna go in and loosen it. I think you can also use some type of Torx bit. I have to look at the head of the screw, but I feel like most kits now come with a 5.5 for this weird stuff. So I'll go ahead and take all these out. There's one. Yeah, so a 5.5. I'll set that in my center console. And then there's a second screw hole. Okay, so let's see if this plastic is going to pop out for us now. Yep, there's that. Oh, plastic galore. Let's see. Doesn't want to come out of this side. There it goes. All right, top piece out of there. Well, you can see that, but the camera's only going to give me so much tilt. I guess I can use this. You're going to have to pull your lever down probably to get the bottom one off. I don't think there's a third screw. Let me just double check. No. Okay. Well, no, there is a third screw, so whoops, 3 screws. I thought there was only 2. Well, that explains why it wasn't coming out. 3 screws. go. All right. Let's get another one out of the way. All right, so with this exposed, we can see all of our wiring and what's gonna have to come out. You can probably proactively start going in here and unplugging things, or we can wait till we get to the point where it's gonna come off. We're gonna have to take our steering wheel off so that we can get this piece off. Because the piece we're gonna be replacing is this in its entirety. So you can see it wraps all the way around the steering wheel, and I'll show you the new part if I haven't already. And then we'll have to take this piece off of the transponder and get that all figured out. But I think next up, I'm just gonna work on the steering wheel. We can let this go up and down as we want. So I'm gonna start taking the steering wheel off and show you how to get the airbag piece off. It used to be screws to hold the back of these on, but now it's like spring clips. I guess easier for the factory, tougher to get off. So let me show you how to get that off. All right guys, so this is going to be probably one of the toughest parts. You may want to watch a video just on trying to get it out. I've locked my steering wheel back in place so it doesn't bump. There's going to be a metal bar inside of here, that this hole that you're pushing up to release. There's clips on both sides here that it releases. So I've got an Allen key as big as I can fit in this hole, maybe even like reaming the hole a tiny bit to get a bigger one in there so you got more leverage. But I'm going in there and feeling left and right, and I think I'm hitting the thing I need to. So I'm gonna push the steering wheel in, just kind of work it, see if I can get it to pop out. It's a little tricky because you can't see, and you're just working blind, but you'll get it eventually. Ah, gotcha. All right, so that was a little more trouble than I thought. I kept thinking I was going too far, but you actually need to be about that deep inside there. So make sure you have an Allen key that's long enough. But man, was that more difficult than I thought. But let me look at it. All right, so now I can show you a tip for doing it. All right, so I'm gonna get this out of the way first. I've had the power off for a while. Let's just unplug the horn here. That's what this is. If it'll let me. Oh, I'll have to get a pair of pliers for that. And then we'll have to unclip all of this, which as you can see just has little push pins on the side, but my fingers are too big to get in there. I'll get back to that in just a second. So I'll show you that in just a moment. So let's look at this. So when you've got your Allen key in there and you're going through the bottom hole, I think where I was messing up is I was trying to keep it perpendicular this way, but you should be pushing back so that it rests there, and then you'll be able to hit it. You'll know if you go past it, but you should be able to go to it, feel something, and then push and get it off. So my problem was I was doing this, pushing on this, thinking that was it, but that's where you want to be. You should hit it with about that much distance. So if you're going further than this depth, you are too far, you've passed it, you need to come back, line it back up, and then push. All right, so let's look at taking this airbag pieces off. So these are a little trickier. They got two little plastic clips on the side that you're gonna press where my thumbs are, where my thumb and my pointer finger is, then you can pull them off. So it looks a little scarier than it is. They popped out. They're color coded really, so you shouldn't be able to mess it up. It should be, you know, well, I say color coded, but just keep in mind which one went where. We've got our yellowish green going over here and our greenish black going over there if we look at our main colors. Now let's see if I can get this horn off. If not, you may have to get a pair of pliers to pull it off because it's almost like a pinch style there. It's moving though, so I would hope it would wiggle its way off of there. Come on, baby. Okay, let me get a little pick under there, or maybe I can use one of my Allen keys just to unpinch it some so I can get it out. You can see the little thing behind it. There we go. I guess you do have to push up on that, so I haven't ran into that for a while. But yeah, you see that little piece on the bottom? Push up on that and then it'll come off easy. Usually they come off easier than that. So there is a certain way they want us to set these airbags, and I just need to double check how that is. So I'll come back in just a second, let you know how they want you to store the airbags when you're not using them. I'm sure it won't matter for a short period, and I'm sure when these things ship or go somewhere, they are all over the place. But let's do it by the book, and let me just double check. Okay, so I just double checked. It's what I thought. So you need to set them with the bag, whatever it is, that would deploy facing up. The reason they say this isn't as much for just storage, but let's say if somehow it accidentally went off and it's facing this way, it's going to shoot in the air. Well, if it's facing up, it'll just blow out like a bag. So I'm going to set this to the side, outside, so I don't got to worry about it. I mean, I've got a few airbags sitting in my garage right now from another vehicle. So that's going to bring us into here, and we can start unplugging things if we see fit, because the next thing I'm going to do is actually want to pull the steering wheel. So I'll start with this clip in the middle, which looks like it may have been out at some point before. I can't tell. But let me just take a look at that, get all this loosened up, and then I'll have to take that bolt out and pull the steering wheel, which I did rent steering wheel puller to get that done. So let's keep going. All right, so like I said, I got the plug out and loosened. I don't think the other one's gonna come off. I think it's probably part of the clock spring, so we should be able to pull the steering wheel off. Like, don't worry about unplugging this. Let me see what size Torx this is. What is it, like a 50 maybe? 50 fits it. Let's see if a 55 fits it better. No, it must be a 50. Okay. So, oh, T47. I'm sorry, what am I looking at? I must have these all mixed up. That's a T45. T50. All right. Yeah, so whatever reason, that thing is all mixed up. So here's a T50. That's going to fit it perfect. So I'm going to go in here. I may have to get an extension and loosen this. Yeah, I'm probably going to need an extension. Let's see though. Sometimes these don't give you a lot of trouble. Nah, not too bad. There's going to be an important thing with pulling steering wheels usually is you want to mark its orientation. Now, I already know that my steering wheel is facing up, but these are usually splined, and sometimes they have like a keyway where they can only go on one way. Other times it is the exact opposite. So looking at this one, I can actually see there's a line up top, and I'm actually going to draw a paint line just in case. Again, it might only go on one way because I can actually see a keyway there where there's a different spline. That usually makes it so you can't screw it up, but just in case, I'm gonna mark it anyway, because the last thing I want to do is, after a job like this, have to get an alignment because I didn't want to spend the extra second. So I've got a paint marker here. This is just good practice, just to do that. So takes a second, covers your butt later. So we're gonna do that. Now I need to pull the steering wheel off, which generally, if you see these holes here, you'll put threads in there and then push on the bolt. I'm gonna see if this will give without that. Sometimes you can just kind of rock the steering wheel off. So I'm gonna try that first before I waste time with the steering wheel puller. But if I have to use the puller, I will show you how. So let's see. I don't think it's gonna come off easy, so, and I don't wanna tear nothing up trying. So let's look at our steering wheel puller. I'm gonna have to pop out some of these clips just to give it access to the screws. There we go. So steering wheel pullers are pretty simple. You're going to take an orientation like so and put bolts through this, and then this bigger bolt, wherever it might be, will push through the center. I'm going to get this set up. I'm going to find the bolt that fits it, that fits the threads, because they leave threads in this column for you. That's too small, so it's definitely not that. Alright guys, so take a look at my setup. Right now I've got the bolt in the back, still in the steering wheel. You could probably take that out and get away with it. I've got my 2 bolts holding this in tight. This is all snug. I'm gonna start tightening this bolt, which should pull the steering wheel. If I have any problems, because it looks like it might start spinning the bolt tighter in here, if that happens, I'll pull the bolt out and and just go straight into where the threads are, because I don't think it's gonna go in there anyway. But this is how it'll look properly set up. So let's see if I can get this off and make sure you can see what we're doing here. Looks like it's coming out, I think. Yeah, so look at that. The steering wheel is nice and loose. So I should be able to back this off, take my other bolts out, pull the steering wheel off. Take the center bolt back out. Let's walk the steering wheel off. The only thing you want to do is, with this clock spring, we're going to keep that nice and centered. This is really important for this part right here, that you do not spin this all around. You might get the urge to just spin it, but it's very sensitive. So if you spun it too many times, it'll break it internally, and then you'll get an airbag light for clock spring. And I've seen these be $50, I've seen these be $150 for this little tiny part. It does spin as you steer the wheel, which is normal, but if you were to spin this out of rotation and then put the steering wheel back on, you can really damage it. So I'm gonna stop here for just a second, clean up my tools, get my stuff out of the way, and then we'll start and continue pulling more parts off of here. And next will be the clock spring. All right guys, so let's get more into this. We'll take the clock spring off next. You're gonna need to separate it from here. If you see that little clip there, I'm gonna pull that out, because I believe that's part of the clock spring. So I just wanna make sure that's out of the way. Make sure the lens is clean on this thing. So yeah, so that will be good to go. That's off. Now we've got some more Torx bits. So if you don't have a set of Torx bits, just buy a set. You see this Lexivon here? I think I paid like 15 bucks for this. And I've used it at least a dozen times doing window motors and all kinds of stuff. So it's really handy. So now I have a T20. Take these two bolts out. And again, I cannot stress enough, do not spin this around. So I'm gonna take this off, keep it as straight as possible so that nothing changes. And then we'll move forward. So let me get that out and keep going. Okay, hopefully you can still see. I'm gonna start working out some of these plugs and clips on this side. So things I know that will probably have to come off, like this plug. Let's just get that out of the way now, if I can. This plug back here, get that out of the way. I'm gonna get my entire wire harness stuff out of my way so I can sit in here. So here's a part that's a little trickier. So we want to pop this. It reads like the security and the key. So we're gonna have to get under here and pop that clip, and it should just come off. I've got enough Allen keys in here, I can probably do it with them. What you don't want to do is break the plastic, because then you're gonna have to tape it, which I think I've seen some taped before. So there we go. Make sure the bottom is also coming off. So there's one down there as well. There we go. So let's get that up and out of the way. I'm also going to have to get it off of this because this piece is being replaced. I guess I can unship that or unclip it, so I'm going to do that. Pull the rest of my hot wires back. I'm not going to show you step by step on, you know, up close on all that, but I may have to get a pair of pliers to get that out. Because next I'm going to have to remove this entire assembly here to get to what I need to. So it may seem like we're ready to go, but let me get this out of the way, pull this off, and then we're at the part that we need to replace. Go grab pliers. Okay, so I'm going to use pliers to get this off of here. It's going to have to clip to our new one. There we go. That was easy enough. Let's move that to the side. So at this point, guys, I have everything unclipped, unbolted from the parts. So that is great. That means I'm safe to go. So next we're going to be taking this piece off, which if I've looked at it properly, we've got a bolt there. And I'm looking for other bolts to see what else holds it in, but right now I only see one bolt. So I'm going to start with that and see if that gets me out of here. It looks like the 5.5 again. And we'll see where that gets us. I'll look around for the other bolts and show you. Alright guys, so there's actually a total of 3 bolts. We've got bottom, top, and then that one right there. It's not where I thought they would be, but they are 5.5 millimeter, so just keep that in mind. You're definitely going to need that 5.5 millimeter. There's no getting around it. All right, so let's see if this is going to come off now with those 3 bolts. Look at that, perfect. We got that piece out. So there's a bolt here. Oop, just dropped one off to grab that. There's a bolt here on the top. There's a bolt here on the bottom, and then there's that one that we saw right here. So I'll have to get that dropped bolt because I'll definitely need it. I can see it, so I'll be able to get that. So we are just about to the important part. So this is the one that's got to come out, and you're probably thinking, okay, well, use some bolt and slap a new one in, but the way these security systems are in here, there's no head on this bolt. The new one, it's called a shear weight bolt, so when it tightens, it rips off the head. So we're gonna have to notch that with a screwdriver to get that out. I'm gonna go grab the new part and show you it so that we can compare them side by side to make sure that, hey, we've got the right part and that everything is good to go with it. So let's go look at the new part and see how it's gonna work. All right, so don't mind the noise, everybody's cutting grass today. Here is our new part. As I mentioned before, it is a dormant. All right, so we're looking at it as so on the car. This is the way it locks when there's no key in there. This part comes off. I didn't actually pull that off yet. There's a wire that clips in there, so I'll have to get that cleaned off. But as you can see, that's the only bolt holding it. It slaps over. I'm gonna take that over there, and the bolt I was talking about looks like this. So this is the shear away bolt. You can see it's got like a recessed area there. So as you tighten it, it'll just snap off. And this is, you know, I don't see the Dorman part number on it. I'll put it in the description, but there's a Dorman logo on here somewhere because I remember seeing it. Because a lot of times they say it's Dorman, then you get it and you're like, is this just like a, you know, even more of a knockoff than Dorman is? But I did see a Dorman logo somewhere. Yeah, there's a Dorman logo. But anyway, I'll put the description in there. This is a direct replacement, no botching anything. And I'll show you how we're going to swap the key over too. Just because I didn't show it, I will show you again. I actually just pulled this little wire clip out of there. So now all my wires are down here. I know I'm safe to work on stuff. I've looked at the new parts side by side. They look like mirror images of each other with the clips and such and everything. So I'm not worried about that. Now I need to grind or do whatever to make a notch in that. I'm gonna check my Dremel tool, see if I have a head for it. If not, I may have to do like a little hacksaw on to do it. And then I'll also show you how we're gonna swap the key cylinder over, which ultimately is gonna make it so you don't have to get like new chips or anything like that. So let me go get a way to notch that. I'll show you that. We'll get it out, and then really we're just putting everything back together. So we're more than halfway done, or just about halfway done. All right, breaking out the grinder. I don't want to have to do this, but I don't have a cutting wheel. I do not feel like going out. All right, let's check this out. More than I needed, but there we go. Jesus. Well, it's out. It wasn't very clean. I wish I had a cutting wheel for my Dremel, but you know, this worked fine. Nothing got damaged or anything, so that's good. So let's go show you how we're gonna swap over this key cylinder from one to the other, and then we'll put the new one on. All right, guys, let's do one of the most important parts. Here we have our old lock cylinder and ignition cylinder. We wanna swap this over to our new one, so let's put the key in there. Hopefully you can see okay and it's not too much. All right, so we got the key in there. We're gonna turn it one spot forward. This would be the accessory position. Take some kind of pick, push down in this hole, then it loosens it. We can pop this out, okay? This is out, we're gonna set it down. We need to look at the orientation of this part on the inside and see where it's lined up with. So we can see the grooved edge is lining up with this large groove edge. And right now that's not the case for our new one, okay? They don't come in that position by default. So you're gonna need to match that up before you can pop it in. So take a screw, take some type of pliers and get in there. So now you can see I have it lined up to the same orientation that this one is. So I should theoretically be able now to slide my key in there. You can see it has a chamber that it slides into. Push, and boom. We're good. So it's in there, it's tight. Now that that's done, we can start swapping over this into the new, this new part of the car. So let's do that next. All right guys, so you saw me swap over the guts that we needed. Now we've got an empty, steering wheel column. We'll be ready to put the new part back in. I have it down here. You're essentially gonna line it up and smack it over. You'll know when it settles in because it'll sit flush, but I'm gonna get this, there we go. So that's pretty much it right there. It lined up for me. I'll get the screw, get this tightened in, and then we'll make sure everything's good before we tighten the screw down, because once we break that screw, it's not too fun to mess with. So let me get you lined up. We'll start working through. I know there's a glare and shade from the sun coming up, but let's keep going. We'll just slap this back together and we should be good to go. Essentially with this bolt, you're just going to keep going until it breaks. So it's been closing the gap, it's sitting in there good, but you just keep going. Eventually that screw is going to shear off like that. So it's good, nice and solid, not going anywhere. So now we can start putting all of our wiring back in. I'm going to start with this in there. We can clip this wire back in there now. All right, and everything else really needs to wait until it's in there except this. This can move over. We know it clips in there. And should just lock back over the new one. Make sure it does. There we go. So this is back on, that's locked in. We've got a couple more plugs that will come back on after the switch is on, but getting everything else on there while you can is perfect. Next up, we're going to be putting our blinker assembly back on. I believe that's what's next. And if you remember, the blinker is on this side. Let's see if we can line that up. Oops, sorry. It's on this side, but we're going to have to go here. Get that lined up. And as you recall, there are 3 screws. We've got one here, one at the top, and then one through the bottom. So let me get those screwed in. Then we're going to just plug it in back here. So you see here, it might be easier to do it now, to plug that in before you screw it down. Oop. Anyway, so clip it all in before you put it in there, and then we'll work from there. I'll get it all put on. Okay, so all 3 of the bolts are good. We got one straight in, top, bottom. That's all good. Cluster's good. All my wires are plugged in now except the clock spring, which is good to see. So let me get the clock spring. And you want to maintain its orientation. I know the wire was up top. It was lining up with this tab, so if that's how you're going to remember it, I'm going to drop it in. And this takes a Torx bit. Let me just get this one started. Alright guys, so we got our steering wheel ready. I want to remind you that we need to feed these wires through to here. Okay. Make sure the clock spring stays up. And then we made a line where this should go. Not that it should really matter, because I'm pretty confident it's only going to go on one way. You just want to make sure everything lines up the way it's supposed to before we put the screw in. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. I'll double check. Because you want to make sure the clock spring is sitting in its little spots too. Okay. So my paint line matches up. I'm pretty sure it only goes on one way because it's notched anyway. But again, that was just a peace of mind thing. Let's put our bolt in there. We'll have to tighten that down for it to pull the steering wheel in. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way that all looks. We'll see when the trim goes on how that's gonna hold up. So let's see what is next here. Okay, next I can plug this back in for the steering wheel buttons, so that'll be good. Then, as we recall, this stuff goes to the airbag and the horn. So we've got this. Just make sure you plug them back into the right ones. And then you can't really see, but we'll plug them back into the right ones. And then let's not forget the horn. Definitely want that to work. Okay, now we should just be able to pop this bad boy back in. There we go. And that's good. So at this point, guys, the only thing really left is to put our plastic covers back on, which should be fairly easy. I'm actually going to test everything before I do that, so let me hook the battery back up, take a look at everything, and then we'll make sure it's working before I go any further. I did want the steering wheel on just to make sure that's good, but let's see how things go. Alright guys, so it is the moment of truth. I have my battery hooked back up, and I did charge it up some, so it should be good. Let's see if the car will want to start easier. Don't mind the mess in here. I didn't put my plastic back on, but everything else is plugged in. Let's see. Oh yeah, immediate. So check it out now. So take the key out, key in, just very lightly. Perfect. So I'm gonna put the rest of the plastic back on. I might film and I might not. I'm sure you guys can handle popping the plastic back in, then putting the 3 screws in. That's the easiest of everything, right? My steering wheel's back on, it's tight. I did actually go back, pull that bolt out, and put some thread locker on it just in case, and make sure it was nice and tight. So now I'm just gonna go through, put my plastic back on, test everything out, make sure your wires are good. Everything on my end is clipped in. You can see the clock spring stuff going in. So I'm super happy with this. It worked out, it fixed it. It was really only like, I think, a $60 part. But I think the dealerships want a lot more to do this job, especially if you use a Ford part. But get a Dorman one if you can. It's lifetime warranted, and if I had to do this again, it'd be a little quicker. So I'll film the rest, and again, if this was helpful to you, or you had this problem, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the video, and I super duper appreciate it. So have a good one, guys, unless I continue the video. See ya.